If you like controversial videos, you might like this one. Hello world, hello YouTube land. How's it trumping? Right, I just read a comic book which is trying to do a retro heavy metal thing and appeal to the inner child of the kind of guy who gets tattoos and rides motorbikes. The inner child who remembers the 1980s when heavy metal was still a thing and has fantasies of great warriors chopping up people in some sort of cyberspace fantasy world. I'll show you the comic book. Here we go. Atomahawk, issue number 0. Why am I not saying anything? It's because I'm considering where this video is going to go. Okay, I'll just talk about the artwork at the beginning. I will say what's on my mind. I think it needs to be said. Right, so the artwork is done by a tattoo artist type of guy. We get some of his some photographs of his actual work here in the middle of the book. There we go. And the art works pretty well with the narrative because the narrative isn't really anything at all. It's just a guy who's super cool in a juvenile school kid kind of way called the Cyber Circuit with a cool weapon called the Atomahawk. And he's just chopping people up and nobody can resist him because he's so awesome, he's so cool. So it's chop, 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 chop. The kind of story that you would write in the back of your school textbook if you were bored at school doing a maths lesson and just fantasize about having some power in your life. Because obviously as a kid subjected to some crappy maths lesson, you feel completely powerless. And this kind of character who's just chopping people up with his big axe would really appeal to you. So that's what the comic book's going for. But there's something else about it which I want to mention. And the creators, there they are here, right? Notice that T-shirt says pro-choice, which is an Orwellian term, which just means no choice for the baby. You're going to die because mummy doesn't want you. And if you're someone like me who called it out for what it actually is, then you obviously hate all women. I just don't like dead babies. That's kind of my issue. But the creators of the comic book then being lefties. And I know they're lefties because I've had a look at what they get up to on the internet. And there's lots of anti-Donald Trump type of stuff going on, as you would expect from just about everybody in the comic book industry today. You kind of don't get into their club unless you signal that you think that Donald Trump's the second coming of Adolf Hitler. I understand that. And I think Donny Cates, the writer, has got a job working for Marvel Comic Books now, so he's there, right, he's right in the middle of the fish tank of identity politics leftism, which is starting to break, by the way. There are cracks in that fish tank, as we'll see when Harvey Weinstein was thrown under the bus by all his liberal mates. Now they're all condemning him and saying, oh, he was an evil man, he's so terrible. They knew this for decades and decades and decades, but they protected him because it was good for their careers. But things are starting to change now, thanks to the main man, Donald Trump. That Overton window is shifting away from the far left. So is a message to those working in the fish tank of leftism, which is the comic book industry at the moment. Get ahead of the game and come out of the closet. And if you are a man or woman who's got some more right-leaning conservative political viewpoints, because if you do that, you really will be ahead of the game when the leftist fish tank completely bursts. Because it's happening in the it's happening to Hollywood, and Hollywood's obviously a lot bigger than the comic book industry, and it's going to happen to the comic book industry as well. The dam will break, and your little bubble of identity politics is not going to last for much longer, I'm afraid. Anyway, getting back to the comic book then, Atomahawk. Why do I have a problem with it? Because I live in Europe, right? I don't live in Europe. But, you Americans might think that I'm a European. But, I don't see myself as European. I see myself as English. And I live near London. And over the last year or so, we've had lots of Islamic Jihadi terrorist attacks. And also Manchester, in the MEN Arena, which I visited to see Morrissey perform. There was a nail bomb that went off there, and lots of little girls died. So the threat of Islamic Jihadi terrorism is very, very real here in England and the rest of mainland Europe. So when I see a character in a comic book who reminds me of the Islamic Jihadi, I've got to call it out, even if it's going to get me in trouble on YouTube. So I've got to be very careful about what I title this video. But why do I think the character in this book then is like a jihadi terrorist? Well, these are his words. And remember, this guy is just going around with an axe chopping people up. He says, "They plead to me for mercy as they fall, but I have no say in the matter. I am not their death. I am the hand that holds it. I am the cybercircer. I obey the blade." So it's not about him. He's not taking any kind of personal moral agency in his actions. It's because of his God. It's because of the blade, which is the Sat's kind of thing that you'd expect to come from the mouth of a jihadi. And at the end of the book, just so I can show you that I'm not, putting something onto the book that is not there, it becomes even clearer in that some of the characters that this hero, remember, is fighting are Christian crusaders. So these are the army, the people who are hero in the book, who as a reader you've been asked to identify with, has to fight against. So you want the Islamic Jihadi inspired cybercircer to defeat these Christian crusaders, which is what he does. So it's quite and there he is chopping them all up, and it's his voice throughout the book. So there can be no doubt there that you've been asked to identify with this character. You've been asked to identify with a character who's chopping up Christian crusaders, saying that none of this is his own fault because he's just obeying the will of his God. And it's very Islamic Jihadi. I don't know how it could be more Islamic Jihadi if you tried. And the worrying thing about this is that I don't think that the writer, Donny Cates, has done this on purpose. I think that because he's living in America, because he's in that fish tank bubble of leftism, that he doesn't see it, and he probably doesn't even see Islam as a threat at all. So I'm sure it hasn't even crossed his mind that his hero comes across like a jihadi. But living in Europe, that's the first thing that comes to mind when I read the very first page of the comic book. So on the very first page, I thought, wow, this guy seems like a bit of a jihadi. What's the writer doing here? And yeah, I just looked at him on the internet, saw him tweeting a few things about different Donald Trump, different people working for Donald Trump and how they're evil and stuff. So it's just, it's just the same old ignorant leftism. But that's the problem with the world today. It's not deliberate evil coming from the West. We've got deliberate evil coming from the Middle East, but it's just this enabling which is coming from the left. And as Breitbart used to say, politics is downstream from culture. What's coming from the cultural institutions like Marvel comic books, who the writer now works for, and Hollywood, which is breaking, yay at last. It's really poisoned our culture over the last few decades, and it's weakened us into a position that we're starting to feel really bad about ourselves, and it's almost a case of we're not prepared to defend what we have because we don't see that there's any worth in our history and everything that has been built for us that we're enjoying today. And that's just the left. That's just the termite left destroying everything as it always does. And it's just it's getting to a very dangerous point here in Europe. And thank God, thank Trump, it's not happening in America as well. So you've got you've got that at least going for you in America. We don't have that in Europe. We're in big trouble here in Europe. So when I read a comic book like this, I've got to cut out what it's trying to do, unintentionally. But hey, like I said a minute ago, Hollywood is collapsing. The influence of the man is starting to spread all over American culture, and hopefully, because we in England, we don't have a real strong sense of national identity anymore, and we get lots of our cultural artifacts from the States. And hopefully, if your culture starts to turn away from the left and starts to fall in love with reality again, then that reality will start to drip down to England and the rest of Europe, and we'll start to be able to fight back against the cult of leftism, which is enabling evil from the Middle East to do what it's doing to us today. Wow, that was a controversial video, wasn't it? What shall I title it? Because I don't want to get banned. Oh well. Yeah, thanks for checking out the video. And actually, tell me what you think if you've read this book. I think I made some good points there. Yeah, I'll trump you later. See you guys. Goodbye.